Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to face the new normal? Yes, it's the new buzzword in town. People call it the new normal. And the question is, are you ready for it? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar organized by the Rotaract Club of NIBM on the topic, are you ready to face the new normal? And today I have a very eminent panel who will join me in the discussion in 4 different key areas where COVID-19 has already made an impact. So COVID-19 has affected us all, but we are today specifically taking 4 areas where the COVID-19 has made an impact, so you get a better insight. So first of all, I would like to take the area on law and discipline, where we have Mr. Ajit Rohana, who is no stranger to anyone in Sri Lanka now, the DIG from the Sri Lanka Police. Second, we have Dr.Mahen who will speak on the areas of health and safety. And for you to know, Dr. Mahen is the consultant microbiologist and an infection preventionist. You can't ask for more in a day like this to prevent you from infection, who is from the National Hospital of Kandy. And we have the third area to speak on technology and economy. We have Ms. Lakmini.Wijesundera, who is the founder and CEO of Iron One Technologies, and better known as Boatpack. She is an innovator. She had gone out of the country. And last but not least, to speak on education and competency. That's a new area, competency, yes, education and competency. We have Buddhima Subasinghe, who is the head of computer science from the National Institute of Business Management, known as NIBM. So I would not take much time in introducing or further length. So since you are busy, since the panelists are busy, let's straight get to the point. And I would straight away throw the question to DIG, Mr. Ajit Rohana. Yeah. I've been listening to some of your clip and it's I was so happy to hear that you have experience from 90 countries. I don't think we had a DIG with an experience coming up from 90 countries. And you were talking of attitude of people. And I think this part of the nation, attitude counts a lot. So I wonder whether the COVID had changed the attitude of people. If not, what will, and will we have another chance? So I would like to have your response on that.
Good evening. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So as a member of the main law enforcement agency of Sri Lanka, so I would like to express my sincere appreciations to the organizers of this webinar for giving this opportunity to Sri Lanka Police. So the question that was raised by the moderator is is there an attitudinal change in respect of COVID-19 or post-COVID-19 period? As you all know, the first COVID positive patient was found on the 27th of January 2020 as a Chinese national. Then thereafter, the first COVID positive Sri Lankan patient was found on the 11th of March 2020, I mean 2.5 months back. And now we have completed almost 3 months after the inception of this particular COVID-19 concept in Sri Lanka. So during this period, so what we have achieved or what we had lost. I have some examples in respect of COVID-19 scenario. The first example is that I think we had a meeting on the 4th or 5th of April 2020, 2 months back, and we were discussing about this PCR test. So at that time, generally the doctors or the experts in the field, they insisted to increase PCR test. At least they insisted to do PCR at least for 1,500 tests per day. Then there was a problem arisen. Dr. Paba Paliyavadna, the additional Director General of Health Services, and she said that yes, we have machines, we have the staff, we have experts, but we are having a problem. So what is the problem? We don't have subs. We don't have subs because in our hand now we have 1,700 subs. So if we are going to conduct this type of PCR test, so in 2 days time, so it is exhausted. So therefore, what is the remedy? Then we were discussing, so we need to import PCR subs from China. Then the airport is closed. So how do we get these subs? Then Admiral Jayanath Columbage, Additional Secretary to the President, he said that, okay, so if it is available in the market, yes, a special flight would be flown to China and we can get this thing. But the problem is it takes time. The flight should be sent there, then thereafter, then, but then somebody said that the doctors, now they are not going to sell their products because they need it. An engineer, and apart from that, one of the experts in the field, so he stood up and he said that, no, give me 2 days time, give me 2 days time, and I can make some experiment and I'll let you know. I believe he's called Manju Gunawardana. He said that I believe that we would be able to make these subs in Sri Lanka. So in 2 days time for the next meeting, he came and he said that, don't worry. We can make these subs in Sri Lanka. So give me another 2 days. And on the following day, he came with 2,000 subs. So therefore, but I mean, from the inception, for a period of 30 years time, we never made this type of inventions in Sri Lanka. But within 2 days time, the necessity came and we were able to produce, we were able to manufacture this particular product in Sri Lanka. Now it is being manufactured and we don't have a dearth in respect of subs. So these type of changes, sudden changes, attitudinal changes had occurred in the post-COVID-19 period. And in addition to that, we observed that especially our community policing police officers during the curfew period, they visited various areas, especially rural areas. So the people, the farmers, the villagers, they were starting cultivation, chili, many yams, many types of crops they were trying to cultivate. So therefore, I believe that, I mean, after this COVID-19 concept, COVID-19 scenario, so our attitudes, I mean, partly the attitudes of Sri Lankan have been changed. So every time we were thinking of ships that are coming to Colombo Fort or Trincomalee Port, and every time if the ships is getting late, so we were losing everything. But now the time, the attitudes, so everything has been changed. Now we have a productive mind, and it has been inculcated in the minds of Sri Lankan citizens.
Great to hear. At least the virus is now changing our attitude, and let's hope we move from positive to greater heights. So now I'll turn on to Dr. Mahen Kotalawala, who will speak on health and safety. Sir, I think the reported figure for dengue is at 19,825 total dengue cases. And we have diseases such as leptospirosis, we have self-poisoning in Sri Lanka. With all these, how come COVID-19 has become so important, and how come it makes such an impact to us? Dr. Mahen Kotalawala?
Yes, thank you very much. So as you very correctly said, so it seems that the burden of COVID-19 in Sri Lanka is less compared to other known diseases that we have encountered in past, just like dengue, leptospirosis, or cardiac diseases, or deliberate self-poisoning. All seems to be having a higher toll than COVID. Then why do we consider COVID differently? If I were to answer your question simply, because COVID-19 is a different disease to all diseases that we know. Why? COVID COVID-19, a disease which is discovered only 7 months back. And it is caused by a virus where we are not familiar with. We know all other viruses, mumps, measles, rubella, and we know the treatment, and we know how contagious are these viruses. But unfortunately, COVID-19, the disease, and the SARS-CoV-2, the virus which causing COVID-19, the information available for us is less, and we don't know much about it. Still, the knowledge that we are having is not complete. So the knowledge changes day by day. And therefore, it is a new disease and a new virus, and therefore it needs to be treated differently. And the other aspect of this is COVID-19 is a disease which spread across the world in pandemic proportions. That means it has a huge burden, huge case load, mortality and morbidity. And if it allowed to expand in the same rate that we see now, it will engulf all mankind within very short time. So therefore, we have to consider, we have to think, and we have to assume that COVID-19 is different to other diseases that we know. Another important aspect of COVID-19 is there's no definitive treatment, no vaccination, or no means of prophylaxis. So that itself, those three parameters itself, is a huge burden to us. Though the number of cases are low at the moment, there's a potential that at any time, any given time, it can spread in enormous way throughout the world, as in USA. So if I were to go on mid-March, the number of cases reported in USA is around 1,000. Number of cases reported in Russia is around 20, 30. At the same time, we were having the same number of cases in Sri Lanka. But see what has happened within 1.5 months time duration. In USA, now there are nearly several million cases, and also deaths is around 200,000, 300,000. So that is what COVID can do to a country. And in addition to that, it has huge impact on all our day-to-day aspects. So therefore, it's not like dengue, it's not like leptospirosis, it's not like deliberate self-poisoning, and it has to be treated differently because it is different. And we, as we have suggested, as the topic suggested from today's discussion, so we have to live with it in a different way that we have lived with dengue or leptospirosis. So therefore, we have to consider this as a different entity which has a potential to spread all over the world, endangering all races, all societies, and all countries. So that is why we need to consider this as a different entity, mainly because of its pandemic potential.
Okay, Doctor. Unbelievable how a microorganism which cannot be seen by a naked eye, how the impact that it makes to Sri Lanka and the rest of the world. So let me turn on to the technology and the economy side. So I'll turn on to Ms. Lakmini.Wijesundera. So Lakmini, I think in March, we saw in Sri Lanka, the employers and employees were busy learning Zoom and Teams. And not even 2 months, we saw now the mothers and children are learning Zoom. So the technological advancement, which would have taken 3 to 5 years in my personal view, I saw that happening in just 3 months. So the question is, will this trend continue, or will our people go back to brick and mortar? Or what is the great opportunity you see as a Sri Lankan technology entrepreneur as a result of this sudden change, the mindset towards the technological usage, Lakmini?
Sure, thank you very much, Sandhan. What you rightly said is exactly the situation. So, I mean, technologies, some of them, as you mentioned, are commonly known ones like the video conferencing. There's like telemedicine. Now you see doctors across like a computer. You have the education. Then also you have like drones carrying things, because now people cannot have people have to have social distancing. There's drones, robotics, e-commerce. I mean, so many different areas. Our belief and the trend that we are seeing is that even when COVID ends, as we discussed, the mindset that changes doesn't really go back. So many of the people who actually had fear of using, let's say, this video conferencing and all these things, the likelihood that they will continue, not all of them, but many of them will continue. And the important thing that you mentioned is the timing, because now if you take internet usage or any of these statistics, in 2019 or 2000 early 20, we have a forecast, and we have a forecast that in 2025 it will be something. Now suddenly, like you said, in 3 months, that forecast just busted. It's happened now. There has been no time for innovators even to take advantage of it yet. So as you can see, there's this huge number of people suddenly using these technologies, looking for things to do with it, and there's a catch-up time. There's like a vacuum of applications. So if you take the usage, I mean, if you take the internet users, you'll be surprised because 50.8% of all users globally is they're in Asia. And if you take USA, where we think the majority users are, there's only 7.5%, like about 300 million there. Whereas if you take Asia, there's 2.3 billion people. And remember, we are in Asia. So there's all these people, billions of people now using applications, never used it before, probably, hardly used it before. Suddenly, they are this captive audience. They have needs. We don't even know what their needs are properly. Sometimes even they may not know what their needs are. So there's us in Sri Lanka, in Asia. I mean, this is like a fabulous situation. I mean, apart from the health situation, from a innovator's point of view, technology, I mean, you can't get better, right? So this is what we are seeing. So if you take BoatPack, which is a technology company doing certain things, I mean, they are globally in many countries, but we started in Sri Lanka. Actually, Nations Trust, it was a request by Nations Trust that we started. So the banking sector here took us. We went to Asia. We went to Malaysia first. So the top banks in Malaysia took us. This is, I'm talking about this 100% Sri Lankan technology. And as a DIG mentioned, I mean, the innovation capability in Sri Lanka is unbelievable. So after that, we went to many countries, from Singapore, and I mean, the stories we have of India. Now, India is this big country, right? Right next to us. And we think that they have so much of technology, but even the Central Bank of India uses Sri Lankan technology. So it's basically, as you mentioned, the opportunity is incredible. There's so many things free, like for example, now we talk about funding. I'll briefly say it, even accelerators, funding accelerators in US, which you can't reach usually. You have to travel to US, stay there for a couple of months. I mean, you can't go, right? Nobody can go. So it's all equalized. Whether you're in Silicon Valley or whether you're in Sri Lanka, if you apply, you're going to be doing Zoom or Teams or something. So I really recommend, like, the young people, I mean, again, not young people, but anyone who's an innovator, to consider, exploring these things. And just before I end, just want to mention now, we are in 2020. So everybody talks about the 1900 and the Spanish flu. So imagine those people who were born in 1900. They went through Spanish flu. They went through the World War I in 1914, World War II. And that is the time that had the biggest innovations in that decade. From the automotive, the cars came, the airplanes came, the television came, internet came. So, I mean, this is our time, right? This is 2020, this decade. And I really think that it's really time for a country like Sri Lanka from Asia having this equalized opportunity. And a little story before I end is, even if you take the flight, some of you may know this Mr. Langley, Samuel Langley, who was given $1 million at that time. This is like in 1900s. And given the best Harvard graduates, he didn't win. It was the Wright brothers who were from a bicycle shop. That that got the first flight. So this is kind of a story that a country like Sri Lanka, we mustn't, as the DIG rightly mentioned, it's all mindset. So we are going for it. We are going all the way to make like a top company, top number one company. And similarly, we sort of encourage technology people to take this opportunity. So thank you, Sandra.
Okay, great to hear, and congratulations that you have tapped the Indian market and you have gone into the governments of India. And as you correctly said, I never thought, I mean, on another day, a conference or a seminar like this, we would be on stage in a 5-star hotel and people will be in front of us. Whereas today we are in 5 different locations connected and the audience also in all over. So this is unbelievable. And this is the tech growth that we are talking of, which the COVID had made an impact already. So let me now turn my eyes on to Buddhima, especially going on to the education area. So Buddhima, as I already mentioned, we saw the parents, especially the mothers and the children learning Zoom Teams, because a lot of education areas have started on e-learning platform. Do you think this trend will continue, or do you think people will go back to the classroom learning? So I would like to know from you, what are the merits and the demerits of e-learning?
Yes, and then actually speaking of merits and demerits of e-learning, I think we saw, as Ms. Lakmini and DIG rightly mentioned, the way the change of mindsets of students, teachers, and also university staff and all that took place was really amazing. So we, as the National Institute of Business Management, I think I have to really mention this. 2 years back, our Director General, Dr. D.M.A. Kulasurya, he had a vision. He always told us we need to move to the international arena and we have to really work like an international university. We have to open space for international students to really join us. So we started working on technology so that we can bring in international students to also work with Sri Lankan lecturers and so on and so forth. So this is how the learning management system really came into operation at the National Institute of Business Management. That's where we planted the seeds, and so then there were so many discussions. I mean, people of different age groups, people of different backgrounds. So whether we are all really going into technology, whether everybody is going to accept it or not. So things like that. But with his visionary leadership, we were able to really get this seed planted at the National Institute of Business Management. And we formulated the learning management system for our students. So it was about 6-7 months back that the training was actually given to all faculties, starting from the School of Computing and Engineering, the School of Business, the School of Design, and so on and so forth. Staff training started to be given. So once again, there were certain, ups and downs. How easy it's going to be to really get on board with online studying and online material to be shared, and module formation and this and that. But still we got into that because we were given that visionary leadership. And then after about 6-7 months of training, the students also got into, this blended learning platform. And on the 15th of March, 2020, and then we were successfully able to open the NIBM Digital Campus, which we call as NDC. And successfully, we were able to get our students registered, and the students started continuing the lectures without a single date being delayed in terms of an assessment or a lecture or an examination or that sort of a thing. We didn't have to delay anything, but all the tasks, starting from the program office to all the faculty operations to everything, were conducted smoothly. But initially, once again, there were certain gaps that we had to bridge in terms of the student side, where students started complaining, we don't have the data facility, our parents are not able to fund data for us and all that. So then what we did was we decided, fine, we are going to give free data for our students. So all students who log into the nibmworldwide.com will be using free data that is provided from the National Institute of Business Management. So they don't really have to worry. So we came up with that strategy. Now the students don't really have to complain about data and this and that. Instead, they can freely work. But then we tried to figure out how we are going to get out of this monotony. Now, every day a student has to really wake up early morning and then come in front of the computer and keep listening to the lecturer and so on and so forth. So we introduced different programs like contests in terms of digital contests that can come up with robotics and software engineering and network engineering and then speech competitions and things like that, so that the monotony of just delivering lectures throughout can be avoided and students really engage continuously and they really be a part of the university as they used to be, even though we can't get them on board in the similar manner. So that's one success story that I thought I should share with you in terms of NIBM. We are serving 12,000 students and more than 90% of our students have been successfully functioning with the online platform, and it's great news because we are providing all the facilities for them, even though they are remotely connecting with our lecturers in all the different centers of Colombo, Kurunegala, Galle, Kandy, Mathura, so on and so forth. So Sayandhan, answering your question, I think even schools of Sri Lanka, they have started using Zoom technology, especially, and also Microsoft Teams to conduct the studies and somehow deliver the lectures and the studies for the students. And for the students who can't really work with technology, for example, everybody in Sri Lanka, every child in Sri Lanka does not have a laptop and they can't afford to have a laptop. Until probably the government of Sri Lanka can support our students in terms of education, in terms of technology, for them to really afford a laptop, we also have the possibility of the students, going on TV, where certain channels have been dedicated for them currently, for them to really study and continue their studies. So if they do not have a television, also, I think measures are currently being carried out where materials will be posted to those students, children's homes, so that they can still continue their education. So measures are currently being taken. So answering your question, I think, Sayandhan, one thing we have to remember is a crisis situation really teaches us true leadership. And it has taught us true leadership right now. And as Ms. Lakmini rightly mentioned, we had no option other than going online. And that was the only option, and that's exactly the future. So I think what we need to do is, as university management as well as school management, we have to understand that this is definitely going to be the future. And we never know, as Dr. mentioned, whether we are going to have another second wave or a third wave of COVID-19 that's going to be expected in the next months to come. So does that mean schools are going to be closed for 3 months every year and universities are going to be closed for 3-4 months every year? Definitely no. So we have to find a solution to this, and I think universities like NIBM have really kept that step, and they have started pioneering. And I know for a fact that certain government universities also, they have started conducting online lectures and they are smoothly carrying out their operations. So in certain faculties, if there are any problems, I hope that the other faculties can join hands and support each other and support this movement of sharing knowledge using technology, because this is definitely going to be the future and we will have to embrace this whether we like it or not. And another thing is, Sayandhan, especially when it comes to the students' perspective, there are many advantages. Students need not go to the campus wasting their time. Back in the days, they took about 2 hours to go to the campus. Sometimes they have to take a train, they need to take a bus, so on and so forth. But now the child can stay at home. They just have to wake up in the morning, go in front of the computer, and there's one-to-one interaction between the lecturer and the student. We used to study in lecture halls where there were about 300 300, 400 students, sometimes 500 students, and we didn't even see the lecturer. But now, when using online technology, we can see the lecturer's face one-to-one. We can ask a question and we can get a feedback from the lecturer then and there. So active learning, active participation is enhanced using the online platform. So these are certain advantages, and at the same time, it makes it convenient for the lecturer to also upload an assessment and immediately give a feedback to the students. We need not wait for weeks and weeks for a feedback to come. We know that we have uploaded it, and the lecturer can online mark the assessment and give the feedback to the student within a day or two. So it's very convenient in those means where the student lecturer interactivity has really improved to a different level. And also when it comes to online teaching and online learning, one thing is, in most of the universities, we see that what has been taught over the past 10-15 years have been continuously being taught every single year and semester. And sometimes certain things, knowledge in terms of what we share has been not upgraded. So students don't learn new things. So this is a problem we had in the education sector, because that, especially when we take our fourth year students, I'm sure Ms. Lakmini also would agree, we teach microcontroller programming, artificial intelligence, neural networks, and all that. But that happens in the fourth year. And our students, when they create a robot, sometimes they think, wow, this is rocket science and I've done something amazing. But actually, a student who studies in China or maybe Japan has already done it in grade 8 or grade 7. So our academic curriculum needs to be upgraded. So I think with this online platform, one thing the lecturers had to and will be doing is they will be upgrading their curriculum. And they will be coming up with new ways of teaching, and they will be doing a lot of research as to what are the new technologies to be taught. So eventually we will be stepping into this smart world that we speak of. So that's another advantage for the students, because we speak of this knowledge gaps, and then when the students get into industry, the industry complainers saying the students are not competent enough. So why this happens is sometimes there is a big knowledge gap to what is expected at the industry and what's being taught in the university. So I think that's another important.
Yeah, that answers Buddhima. Thank you. I mean, you can't ask for more, Dr. Buddhima, because I experience what you're saying, because I am a student myself, and I've been attending classes on Zoom and Teams, and I also teach subjects, and I have lectured on that. So I experience on both sides of the coin what exactly you're saying. So now let's turn back to the DIG again. I hope DIG Adrona is still with us. So here I would like to pose a question. We see a lot of digitalization with the pandemic. So I just like to know whether the digitalization process is taking place with the Sri Lankan police. For example, can I dream of a day where I pay the spot fine using my credit card? Or will there be digital identification of driving licenses? What are your views for the future and digitalization in the area that you are serving at the moment?
Yes, thank you for the question. And initially in year 2011, Sri Lanka police accepted and initiated the concept of digitization, especially at the inception of our print between 1904. So from 1904 for a period of 110 years, we had manual fingerprinted forms. So the fingers, they take all these and we have been keeping the forms for 100 years. But in year 2011, with the leadership of this present president, at that time he was the Secretary Defense, His Excellency the President. So he had instructed the Inspector General to initiate a system. Then thereafter, with the support of Colombo University, we were able to introduce this fingerprint system, electronic fingerprint system, and we had approximately 200,000 fingerprint forms manually we checked since 1904 to 2011. Then thereafter we were able to change that particular system. Now we have electronic automated fingerprint system, and if we follow the earlier system, the conventional system, to check a fingerprint or palm or thumb print from the recorded prints, so it took at least fortnight period, 2 weeks period. But now within a period of 1 minute, so we can check all these fingerprints and whether it is tallied with the criminal suspected persons or not. So that is the initial steps that Sri Lankan police had taken in 2011. Then thereafter, Sri Lankan police had expanded the system by introducing VPN to all police stations. So at the moment we have 493 police stations throughout the country, and every and each police station has a VPN unit, virtual personal network, as you all know. So in seconds from police headquarters, we can convey our messages, regulations, police regulations, curfew messages, everything to local police station. And apart from that, so generally approximately 1,000 to 1,500 suspects are arrested daily by the police stations throughout the country, and we collect all the information, all the modus operandi of the suspects, the name, then the description, the other activities that they have involved, the criminal activities, everything. So now we have a system, digital forms, and that particular police station, they should fill it electronically, and our CRD, Criminal Records Division, the Fingerprint Bureau, they receive those forms electronically regularly. So we have that system. Apart from that, as you mentioned, so we initiated a new system after COVID-19 concept, after the 11th of March. So what was the system that we introduced? Is WhatsApp message system. We created a WhatsApp system, and every time if the police headquarters takes a decision in respect of COVID-19 or the quarantine curfew or regulation or restriction of movement or arrest, to arrest of a suspect, so that messages are conveyed to all officers in charge of police stations, all the DIGs, all the senior DIGs, all the superintendents, so assistant superintendents, through the WhatsApp. So it was very successful method, because so sometimes if we are going to use this conventional method, so it is going to one of our communication centers throughout the country. We have 9 communication centers. So via that communication center, that message is going to the police book. So the one of our telephone operators, they need to manually write the message. But after this COVID-19, now we use WhatsApp system, and immediately in seconds that the receiver receives the message. And as you mentioned, this electronic, spot fine payment system. Yes, this particular system was initiated. To establish this particular system, it was initiated in 2013, but now we are in the process of introducing this system. Not only the electronic spot fine payment system, but also electronic driving license system. This particular 2 systems are going together, because if a person has committed an offense, so at the moment we have manual driving license. So if that particular person is detected by PETA police, let's say that he has violated road rules, so cutting the line, or at the signal light point, so he has passed the signal light, by disobeying red lights. So that type of offenser that they can commit. But then they pay that money, 5,000 or 2,000, irrelevant of that particular amount. Apart from that, we need to enter that particular fine to his driving license. And at the moment, we don't have a system because a manual small book is there, but the many of you don't use it and we don't use it. But now we are going to introduce this system along with ICTA, and especially if a person has, this is called demerit mark system. If a person has committed a traffic offense, so automatically it is entered his driving license into the chip. Then it doesn't matter. So he is detected. Let's say he starts from PETA and going to Kandy. So at PETA he has committed a traffic offense. So he is given 8 marks, 8 or 6 marks. There is a marking system there. So it is inserted to the driving license, and the driving license is given to him by the police cop who is on the road. I mean, by using that special instrument. Then he is proceeding to Kandy. So let's say at Nittambo, another offense he has committed. Then again he has been given 8 marks. Then now he has already obtained 16 marks. Then when he is reaching, climbing Kaduganawa somewhere, he has committed another offense. Then he has obtained another 8 marks. So from Colombo to Kandy, when he is proceeding, so he has obtained 24 marks. So if that particular, within a period of 1 year, if a person has exceeded 22 marks, so automatically his driving license is cancelled. So the law is there now. The law is in our legal system. An amendment has been brought to the principal enactment of the Motor Traffic Act. And apart from that, all the other relevant laws, gazette notifications have been published, but the infrastructure has not been developed so far. But we are in the process of developing that. So therefore, I believe that in the near future, sometimes, we were thinking of introducing these 2 systems by May, but now after COVID-19, we were not able to do it. But at the end of this year, so definitely we would be able to launch those 2 systems. Number 1, electronic payment system is spot fine. So either by using your mobile phone or using your credit card, or the other system is demerit mark system. Then the road users, the drivers, so they would be disciplined because they know that nowadays, so we don't have a system to calculate all these things, because the PETA police knew that he has committed an offense. But when he goes to Nittambo, so Nittambo police, if they need to check it, so he need to contact PETA police, Palliacotta police, Grand Pass, everything, whether he has committed an offense. So it's a very big problem. So therefore, but once we introduce this particular demerit mark system, so it is beneficial to the country. So the accidents will be curtailed, the traffic congestion will be curtailed, and apart from that, the road users, the drivers, so they will adhere with rules and regulations. So by end of this year, so definitely we would be able to introduce these 2 systems.
Great to hear, DIG. I hope, I'm dreaming of a day where each police post that I pass, where there'll be a day saying so and so passed with the temperature of 36.2, with the driving license with so much of score. I hope that era is not far away. Great to hear that. So let me now go to Dr. Mahen Kotalawala again. Now that Sri Lanka has slowly and steadily opened up for the economy and people are coming back to work, and the near normalcy is slowly returning, but it's a new normal as people speak. So I would like to ask, from the health and safety measures, what are the measures the employer should take, the employees should take, and the customers should take? So for still, while the virus is there, we all remain safe. Dr. Kotalawala? I think you might have to unmute yourself, Dr. Kotalawala.
Can you hear me now? Right, sorry.
Yes, very much.
Right. So thank you very much for raising that question. Now it is like something like this. Now this is a new situation, new experience for all of us. So here, after 1.5 months or 2 months of lockdown situation, now gradually the country is opening up, and as a result of this, there is a change in all of our life. So as therefore, when we are opening up and when we are coming to work, there has to be certain health and safety regulations that we have to observe. So basically these health and safety regulations should focus hand hygiene, distancing, not to touch face, cleaning, frequent cleaning and disinfection of frequently touched surface, and stay home if you are ill. And that concept has to be observed whether in work or at home or any other place. So therefore, in the workplace, the employer, employee, and customer, all three parties should try to have those 5 or 6 steps enforced in the workplace. So the main idea of having this behavior change in all three parties is to prevent COVID-19 from spreading. So when you get, after some time of locking down, when you get sudden release of that restrictions, in all countries, we have noticed rebound increasing cases of COVID-19. It was evident in Korea, it was evident in Singapore, and many other countries. So therefore, we also will face a similar situation. So therefore, there has to be some modifications in our routine life in order to prevent this from happening. For that, there has to be some inputs from employer, employee, and customer. So let's see what the employer's role in having this sort of behavioral changes or having a structural changes within the workplace in order to prevent employers, employees, and customers getting the illness. So not the customers were directly allowed to area, and they have to keep in a waiting area and come one by one. And then the employees, there are certain observations, certain observances that the employees also has to follow. For example, coming to work with a skeletal staff, where the work can be performed without hindrance, without the risk of getting the illness or transmitting it among the staff members. And also there has to be some certain structural modifications, like erecting physical barriers such as glass barriers between the employee and the customer. And also there has to be a way of cleaning the hands, and there has to be way of cleaning the frequent touch surfaces, and that sort of thing has to be there in the workplace. And again, for the employee, the person has to maintain certain disciplines within the within the office space, like not having frequent congregations or gatherings, not having parties, or not having to meet each other, greet each other. There has to be certain differences in the way that they greet each other in the morning, and like that. And again, the customer has to given clear instructions by the employer and the employee, and what sort of changes they need to observe within the workplace. So in that way, the employer, employee, and the customer, all three parties should take part in this process, in this new experience, and in order to prevent this disease from spreading. So that has to be the main focus in the new era, That is, while we are facing the threat of COVID-19, the possibility of getting a second wave. So we have to keep that in mind and try to find answers within the institution, within the workplace, in order to prevent the issue that I have mentioned earlier. For that, the employee, the employer, and the customer, all three parties has to oblige in the instructions or the advice given by the healthcare. So we can start with appointing of a health and safety officer in the workplace. So this is a very good practice where the health and safety officer can liaise with health officials about the changes that they are going to have in the workplace. And again, the employees and the customers, they can coordinate with the health and safety officer on the instructions that given by the healthcare workers and the healthcare staff on prevention of COVID-19 spread within their institution. So there has to be a closely knit network among those three parties, and also there has to be communication with the external, the outside of the workplace, like in healthcare workers or the police and the army, in case of some sort of emergency or some sort of emergence of COVID-19 within the workplace. And there also has to be a way of communication between the healthcare staff, the office staff, and the customers. So as the DIG mentioned, there has to be a way of, now the police department, they have a WhatsApp group and that sort of chat groups. So again, within the office staff also, there has to be that sort of arrangement, so that there will be a possibility of conveying the messages and decisions taken by the management to pass it to the all employees, and from there to customers. So actually speaking, there has to be a total difference the way that we worked earlier and with the COVID outbreak. So there has to be these changes were brought about by all these parties, so that the workplace will be safe to work without the risk of getting COVID-19 and without the risk of transmitting COVID-19 within the premises.
Okay, absolutely, Doctor. Thanks for that answer. I think wherever I think Sri Lanka, whether be it the public sector or be it the private sector, I think it's quite impressive that we are taking a lot of precautionary measures so that we remain safe. So with that, I would like to focus back to Lakmini on the technological side. So you being a CEO of BoardPack, which is an export-driven Sri Lankan company providing corporate board meetings. And it's quite impressive to see that you have gone beyond 20 countries around the world. What has been your challenges and how would you view this future, especially in the new normalcy, through your experience, Lakmini?
Thank you, Sayandhan. So before I even talk about challenges, I think I want to take a moment and sort of thank, I think the DIG and doctor is here. So representing both the armed forces and healthcare. So from an economy or a business standpoint, I think we really have to appreciate how well the country has performed in containing this matter and the ongoing precautions. So it is with that I talk about the challenges, because if not for that, I think even, you know, this simplicity cannot be referred to. So thank you so much on behalf of, you know, all businesses really. The fact that, as you can see, I'm back in office. So the backdrop is my office and we have a skeletal staff coming, as you mentioned. So really speaking, some of the largest challenges we had, some of them we passed, but of course some of them prevail. So challenges, the ironic thing is, since we are in IT and we are in like virtual boardrooms and board meetings, people just thought that our sales would like go up like completely. I mean, like theoretically, yes, but the actual situation is these are our original business model is large companies. So, and they were, as you mentioned, in many countries, like cities were like Mumbai, which is still on lockdown, South Africa, Malaysia, Singapore, etc. Everybody's, I mean, we are a lot better in Sri Lanka. Many of them are still locked down. So it was very difficult to actually even get a sale done in terms of completing any of our activities. But something I also want to mention, and I encourage our software youth and people to get into, because we do a product. So we are not totally dependent on our sales. I mean, we are in order to complete our expenses, but there is revenue coming because some part of what we earn is from our existing customers, and that's from a product that we develop and push forward. So in that sense, our challenges are there, and the first thing that we looked at is we have our staff, and the staff had to be the teams had to be looked after, mindset, health, all that. So we did the work from home. Now we are slowly coming back. And we felt that, when it's a technology company, our biggest asset, the company, is our people. And it's not really the walls. We left this office and went for like a couple of, almost like 8 weeks, and only came back now. And so looking after and making sure, so when the armed forces and the government is looking after the overall country, we felt it is our duty, or nationalistic duty, to make sure that we as a family or a group, we look after everybody, obviously within our challenges. So that's where the challenges come in. But I always see the opportunity, especially being in teleco. The challenges are because of the way we had worked before. So we've pivoted now. We are actually looking at different types of companies we can directly, without doing face-to-face. We've just started a lot of campaigns on internet. Some of it slowly is seeing some good news. And that is another thing I'd like to encourage, because this equalizing factor. Now, whether you're in New York, whether you're a US person, or whether you're wherever you are, you're equal to a Sri Lankan in Colombo, because no one can travel. Everyone's on lockdown, right? So, and this window, we have to take the opportunity, because in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, this window is not going to be there. They will be able to travel back to their companies, have their coffee, make their relationships. So this is the time. So we're really working hard to try and capture that moment before lockdowns end in these other countries. And hopefully, so that's a kind of pivoting. There's so many things we do, but something I'd like to share in this short time frame, that all of us should really pivot. We should change. And I always believe that, the local market we always start huge globally, and we are so good at what we do technologically. I'm talking Sri Lanka, that we really should take the whole opportunity. So that's kind of the challenge and the opportunity that I see for our company. So I hope that was adequate, Sayandhan, in terms of a response.
Yes. Thank you so much. And speaking of BoatPack, I'm personally using it, and the experience, in my view, is wow. I don't want to say anything more. So let me turn back to Dr. Buddhima, and I would like to ask a different type of question. So with this trend continuing, Dr. Buddhima, do you anticipate the cost of education to come down? Will we have access for overseas education? Is it necessary for our children? So personally, my daughter is abroad. I would ask myself, is it necessary for our children to go to Australia, China, USA, Nepal, Belarus, you name it? Taking so much of money away from Sri Lanka. What are your views on that, Dr. Buddhima? I think you're on mute.
Well, actually, Sayandhan, now speaking of going overseas, and currently the problem that we are facing right now, we see that a large number of students who have been overseas are also coming down to Sri Lanka. I think about thousands of students, about 36,000 students will be coming down to Sri Lanka very soon, and some are still stuck in most of the other parts of the world. The thing is, Sayandhan, with this change, we saw that there are so many opportunities for us out there in terms of education, which we did not tap before. We thought And I personally have seen certain parents really telling their own children that, Sri Lanka is not a good country to live in. It's in vain if you be in this country. You should move to another country. I've heard parents saying this. We can't think of a future in this country, things like that. So this is a demotivation, and I have heard children really calling me and telling me during this COVID period, madam, unfortunately my parents are forcing me to go abroad, and now I don't have the Australia I have been dreaming of, neither do I have Sri Lanka, and what am I to do? And I am stressed, and I don't know the purpose of my life. And it's very sad to see, Sayandhan, that there is a bunch of children like this suffering in Sri Lanka just because the parents want to force them to go abroad. And there is another bunch who really feel that land matters, or the place you be educated from really matters. But one thing I truly believe is that it's what you learn and how best you learn it that matters, and definitely not the land where you're going to learning from really is what matters. And because after all, with this change that we see, I think as Ms. Lakmini rightly mentioned, it's an opportunity. So what we need to do is to grab this opportunity and make most out of it. And just like the NIBM has been taking this positively, and over the past so many months, we have been going through this transformation, it was easy for us to really flow like a river and be steady like a great mountain. So I think in a time like this, we have to understand that we need to embrace this change, and we have to go ahead with it. And there's so much more opportunities out there for the students, not just in the local universities, but they can connect with Oxford, they can connect with Cambridge, they can connect with Stanford, MIT. So all these universities do offer many more courses that our children of Sri Lanka are not aware. So I think it's high time for Sri Lankan students, especially kids who have completed their ordinary level examination and they've got results and they're waiting to join a university, and also there are students who are waiting to sit the advanced level examination. I would really advise them not to waste time just looking at the TV and seeing how many patients are being identified every day from COVID-19, but to look into the opportunities that are available out there on the World Wide Web and see what kind of inventions, innovations you can also do. Because recently we had a lot of students who finished their final projects, and they came up with fantastic innovative ideas which we presented to Slintech, and we are looking at really implementing them in Sri Lanka. So just like most of our panelists mentioned, we have great innovators out here in Sri Lanka. The point is, we do a lot of research in terms of our final year projects and all that, but they don't really come into manufacturing. So I think this is the right time for the government also to support these innovators and bring these products out into the country, so we can really grow as a country, taking COVID-19 as a blessing. So I think especially for the children who look forward to go abroad, one thing I'd like to highlight is, irrespective of which land you are in, all that matters is whether you're focused, whether you have a dream, whether you have a goal in life to achieve, and whether you have a purpose in life. So if you have your goal set, I think wherever you are in, you will be going after your goal and you will really achieve it. And also I'd like to highlight the fact that our parents shouldn't really fear about our kids using technology. Sometimes we see parents telling their children not to use technology. My God, they'll get spoiled. No. We have this technology for the students to really learn new things and move forward in life, but definitely not to spoil them. Yes, there are avenues where they can get spoiled, but that is a duty and a responsibility of an elder, of a parent, to guide the students in the proper direction, to see that they are doing their education using this technology, embracing it, but not using it otherwise. So I think we as elders, we have a duty to see that we guide the students in the right path, being a light to their lives. So that is something that we have to do, but not to complain and get the technology away from the kids. That is something that I would like to highlight. And also, Sayandhan, with this comfortable space of studying, I think students save a lot of time, they save a lot of traveling energy, and they have enough and more time to continue their studies online with whatever the university that they want to get educated from. And also they can take part in webinars, seminars, workshops all around the world. And I see now, especially students who are a part of Gavel clubs, conducting so many international Gavel meetings these days with different countries combining together. So it's great to see our children really getting into those grounds and trying to meet new people online and developing their skills of leadership. I think this is where the country needs to head, and children also need to take into account that there is no point in letting fear really cover us and just keep worrying what's going to happen next, but to take that step and move forward and embrace this change and take it as an opportunity to go for the goal that they always wanted to. I think that's exactly what needs to be done.
Okay, great. So that gives me a lot of hope. I hope I can do my doctorate from Harvard being seated in Sri Lanka. So that's great news to hear. So let me turn back the final round of questions. I won't take much time. I'll go on to our DIG, Mr. Ajit Rohana. So this time I would like to share some statistics. We have almost 38,000 accidents per annum, about 8,000 serious injuries, almost 3,000 deaths per year. But I see COVID, which has just taken 11 deaths in Sri Lanka. And as at yesterday, the reported cases were 1,686. But why, or what is your view to avoid such calamity in the society in the future? What are your thoughts on that, sir?
I function as the DIG traffic for a period of 1.5 years. And apart from that, I have been functioning as the DIG legal and the head of the legal of Sri Lanka Police for a period of almost 1.5 years. And I know the gravity of this problem. And apart from that, we have taken considerable measures in order to curtail this particular problem. As you correctly mentioned, approximately 35 to 40,000 accidents are reported annually. But you should keep in your mind that this is not the actual number. So these are the reported number. But according to the statistics of insurance companies, approximately 500,000 accidents happen in Sri Lanka annually. But those accidents are not reported to police stations because sometimes those are vehicle damages or slight minor injuries. So therefore, they are not reporting those accidents to police station, but the actual number is 500,000, but generally 35,000 to 40,000 cases are reported. And out of that, approximately 3,000 fatal accidents are reported and 15,000 cases are reported in respect of injuries, so the injured persons. So this is the existing accident scenario in our country. But in comparison to other countries, our the fatal accident rate is slightly high. But I mean, if we compare our statistics with South Asian countries, so it is not very high in comparison to India or Bangladesh or Nepal. But in comparison to other countries, slightly it is high. Generally, 8, 9, 10 or 11 persons are killed in road traffic accidents annually. But I mean, during this COVID-19 period, we imposed curfew, then therefore the vehicle movements were restricted and accident have been curtailed. And apart from that, as you all know, there are no vehicles on road, so therefore there is no. So what are the steps that we are going to curtail road traffic accident? So number one, as I mentioned here, electronic driving license system along with demerit mark system. So the many countries, they have adopted this system. So this is the best system that in order to avoid road traffic accidents, and apart from that, traffic congestion. Because now, if you have obtained 22 marks according to our existing legal provisions, so within a period of 12 months, your driving license is cancelled. So therefore, now today, so if you receive thousands of spot fines, so if you pay that fine tickets, so your driving license is not cancelled unless it is an offence of drunk driving or fatal accident or any dangerous driving. But slight offences, I mean cutting the line or passing color lights, signal lights, disobeying road signs, or parking in a wrong place. So these offences are committed by the drivers, and they obtain spot fines, they pay it, but their driving license is not cancelled. But if we are going to implement this particular system, so definitely the most of the drivers I know, they will adhere with the system, because otherwise their driving license is cancelled. This is, and on the other hand, as you all know, in our country, we have our public transportation system is, unbelievable system, I can say, because there is a competition. There is a competition between CTB and private bus owners, the drivers, and apart from that, private buses also, there is a competition, because they call passengers as Cali. Api Kala Ganda Tamai yanne, Cali Pasupasa Ambayana, because they every time they need passengers, because if they don't get passengers, so they are not able to get their income. So therefore this system is there. And now let's say if he takes the buses that are operated from Narayanpeta to Fort 103, very short distance, but they have a competition. But the buses from Colombo to Jaffna, they have a competition. Buses from Colombo to Badulla, CTB competition, private competition. So because they are going behind passengers, and they need passengers. So but if we are able to introduce this particular system, so definitely the driver knows that if he has obtained 22 marks, so his driving license is cancelled. It means his job is lost. So therefore, they adhere with road rules and regulations. And apart from that, I mean, if he takes the statistics in respect of the deceased who faced with fatal accidents, so the majority number is riders of motorcycles. So 1/3 of the deceased persons are motorcycle riders. Then apart from that, the others are pillion riders and the persons who go on three-wheelers. So they are the vulnerable groups in respect of road traffic accidents. And sometimes the passengers, and apart from that, the number one riders, then the pillion riders, the number three in respect of deceased, they are pedestrians. They are pedestrians, so they don't go on vehicles, but finally they are the victims, or they are the deceased of road traffic accidents. So annually 15,000, grievous hurt, injured cases are reported. So they are permanently disabled or partly disabled. So in order to prevent this system, number one, we are going to introduce this electronic driving license system. The law is there. Law was introduced in 2009. Now it has been completed almost 11 years. But then thereafter regulation came, and the other facilities have been improved, the legal enactment, everything. But infrastructure is being developed. So number two, the developed countries, they use the second system in order to curtail road traffic accident is the CCTV cameras. Generally, the Colombo city has been covered by 104 CCTV cameras. So we adopted this system in 2011. Now it has already been completed 9 years. But we are going to expand this particular system to other main cities like Kandy, Galle, Kurunegala, especially Matara. these areas. And we need to introduce a legal system or the legal enactments in order to deal with this issue. Now, according to our existing legal system, there is the provision that if we get this video clips, we can prove a case, but there is a procedure. So it's a very long-term, procedure. But apart from that, we are in the process of introducing laws in respect of CCTV footages. Now, many countries, especially the countries like Great Britain, France, so they have adopted this system. So if the camera detects that particular traffic offense, so automatically spot fine is gone to the resident of that particular vehicle owner, and he should pay within a period of 14 days. So otherwise, so they are summoned to the court. That particular legal system has not been developed in our country, but we are in the process of developing that particular system in our country. And in addition to that, especially we need to draw our attention to the regularize or regulate this driving schools in the country, because we had several discussions along with the Motor Traffic Commissioner General to regulate this. There are various types of driving schools in the country. So some persons, they are qualified and they are qualified to conduct trainings, but others, third-party people are there. So thereafter, straight away they come to the place where the driving licenses are issued and they obtain the license. But that particular system should be regulated. So then it is benefited to the general public. And apart from that, we have already introduced a system and a reward system for the traffic cops who are on roads, because if they are encouraged, the traffic, especially being the DIG traffic. So I function as the DIG traffic from 2017 to 2018, mid-18. So during that period, I was able to detect 100,000 drunk driving cases, 100,000 drunk driving cases per annum. So that is the biggest number that ever we detected in the past. And especially the traffic cops who were on roads have been rewarded 5,000 rupees, because the fine is 25,000. So we paid 5,000 rupees for the detecting officers. So therefore, some traffic police officers, because they have been encouraged and they are rewarded. So therefore, sometimes they never limit their duty to 8 hours. So they go to the road and they detect cases and they detect drunk drivers. So drunk driving is one of the biggest problem, because 1/4 of the accident happened due to drunk driving. So therefore, these are the measures that the Sri Lankan police, along with the Law and Order Ministry or the Defence Ministry, and our stakeholders such as the Motor Traffic Commissioner's Department or the RDA. So we have taken in order to curtail road traffic accidents and in order to prevent road traffic accidents and traffic congestion.
Okay, way to go, DIG. I think from what you explained, the technology which is going to bring discipline, and the discipline is which is going to bring more safety to the public. Great to hear. So let me.
And you may give 1 minute. So sometimes sure. I might please permit me to leave the conference in another 15 minutes time. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your presence, and thank you so much for your value addition and answers. And we really respect you spending your valuable time with us. So let me go back to Dr. Mahen Kothalawala. When we opened up after the lockdown, even on my first day, there was a lot of fear element. So even if you speak to the parents or the children who are waiting to go to school, one day the schools are going to reopen, there is a lot of fear element. So what do you think, how can people overcome this fear and get back to normalcy, doctor?
Right, thank you very much. Now, fear is a normal physiological response, especially when you encounter a strange thing, or when you travel to an undisclosed area, or when you face with some problem, you get the fear. So fear in medicine, we call it a protective mechanism. Now for COVID-19 also, fear is protective. Fear is the feeling which drives the parents and the students to know about the disease and get over the fear. But the issue here is unsubstantiated and unreasonable sort of fear. So unsubstantiated and unreasonable fear may lead to some issues, especially when the country is being opened up and the government is planning to open up the schools, so that invariably parents and students, kids, both will have certain degree of fear for COVID. So as a medical practitioner, I would say this much of fear, unsubstantiated and unreasonable fear, is not good for us, because when we have that much of fear, we tend to take irrational decisions, irrational thinking, and irrational actions. As a result, it may have some sort of damaging effect on both the parents as well as the kids and the school. So I will take an example now. Recently, I had chance to take part in some of the parents and schools meetings where they are planning to have enforced in the school premises. For example, spraying disinfectants through disinfectant chambers when the child passes through it and when the child wants to pass to go through that gate. So there I had opportunity to tell the principal, staff, and the parents about these disinfection chambers and how damaging it to the student and also the environment. Fortunately, so they all agreed and they just withdrew the suggestion to have a disinfection chambers in school premises to disinfect students. So likewise, as a result of this fear, unreasonable fear, unsubstantiated fear, there may be some irrational thinking and irrational acts in the part of parents or students. So therefore, this fear has to be overcome. So how do we overcome this fear? Basically, by knowing about the disease. Now, if I were to tell about the disease will have a mortality of less than 1%, and it is transmitted mainly through droplets and contact. And there has to be a person who is ill to get the disease and to pass the disease to a healthy person. So if we look at these parameters, factors, we can easily have some methodologies to overcome the fear. So basically, what as a medical practitioner, I would say all stakeholders should come together and discuss about the disease openly. So, and discuss about the fears that they are having in the disease. So a healthcare worker can help in that regard. So in this way, the parents will get to know the true scenario, true picture of the disease and what are the risks that they are having and how to avoid the risk. So the students also will have the same thing, and at the same time, the teachers also will get to know the true burden of the disease and also the risk and what are the risks and how to manage the risk. So the fear, though it is physiological, but what we can see from the responses and from the views of the parents, that it had gone beyond the tolerable level to unsubstantiated fear level, so that they are taking steps which may not be good for the kids and the environment. So therefore, what I suggest is to get down a medical practitioner from schools and have a discussion on the ways of overcoming fears, and at the same time to find a way to prevent transmission of COVID-19 in the school setting. Schools, when there is a place where there is thousands and thousands of kids come and gather. So therefore, if one person is there with COVID-19, so there's a possibility of having an outbreak within the school premises. So therefore, the students and the parents and the kids all should be aware of the fact and should act accordingly. So basically, they should focus on hand hygiene, maintaining the distancing, cleaning the frequently touching areas like desktop, the doorknobs, the computer tables, or the telephones, or that sort of thing, and avoid touching face, and to stay home if the kids are ill. So that sort of arrangement has to be there. A discussion has to be made between all three parties to overcome the fear. And medical personnel can help to give the true picture and the true information about the disease so that they can overcome the fear. And I also want to stress this fact. So with fear, sometimes you can have certain things like spraying alcohol or spraying hypochlorite or asking students to walk through disinfection solutions and that sort of thing. It has to be stopped. So those are the things that are done by the parents and the staff because of fear of disease. So therefore, they should know what ways are available to prevent the disease from transmitting from one person to other. So this has to be highlighted as a method of overcoming fear among school kids and parents and also teachers.
Fine, fine. Thank you, doctor. I hope that advice will take away the fear element to people who want to get back to normalcy, especially the school, the parents. Thank you so much for that. So next, let me turn down the question to Lakmini on a more on the SME point of view. You know, the businesses were down last month and still we are not got back to the normal situation where the businesses and the revenue is concerned. So economy is also down. So what role can a SME sector play to revive this situation?
Thank you, Sayandhan. So if you take Sri Lanka, I mean, it's an enormous number of companies that constitute SME. It's over 1 million. I mean, compared to the larger companies, which is some 1,400. When I saw the last statistics, there's over 1 million SME companies. If you take the population of the working population, over 50% of that population actually is in SME. So these SME includes micro, and that's, I mean, even if you're like a individual person or having 1 or 2 people, to companies which have a couple of thousand people, that whole thing is under SME. So in my view, really, I mean, when we looked at, so we fall under SME. Most IT companies, technology companies fall under SME. And what really happens is, I mean, these million different organizations of different sizes, we kind of looked at it. If half of our population of working people are looked after by these million companies, then automatically more than half of the population in Sri Lanka is sort of looked after. And in a sense, while the armed forces and the healthcare is doing such a nationalistic job, from an economic standpoint, I mean, we felt that we have to look after the team, the staff, whether we have 100, 200, whatever the number, if we all did our contribution and looked after the people in our care, automatically over half the population is, in a sense, somewhat economically looked after. But having said that, Sayandhan, I mean, as you mentioned, when the revenue goes down, I mean, where's the money to give people? So that issue is there. Of course, the government helped us a little. I mean, we cannot expect a government such as a Sri Lankan government to be financially like Australia or USA, where they, you know, what I heard is they are pumping money for like months. But we have to be realistic. So I think they did what they can. It may not, you know, be sufficient completely, but efforts are being made. I mean, we also benefited from that. So in that sense, initially it's a nationalistic responsibility. So SMEs are the bigger workforce. So starting from that, thereafter, some of the key things that we looked at is the staff health, mindset, fear, things like that. That was talked about both by the DIG and the doctor. We tried to create a sort of a fearless or a secure situation while people were working from home, especially while working from home. And now of course, the people that we're trying to get people back to office as soon as possible so that we can have some level of normalcy. That is actually what you see here at the backdrop, because we're trying to, you know, actually next week more people will come. There again, as you all mentioned, like the health officer situation, we have a team. We have like a COVID watch team who basically looks and finds out what's going on with other companies, what the government is saying, things like that. And then we formulate and sort of have a single voice in the company, telling everybody this is what we should do. I mean, I don't know whether we're always right, but we try to, you know, it's a collective people of about 4 or 5 people. So, so far, I think we've done fairly well. And this is sort of what I'm sort of thinking, if the SMEs all look after their teams and people the way they can and have good communication, not sort of have anyone left behind in a sense, that would really save our country until, you know, this is going to go on until the vaccine anyway. And we'll have to sort of learn to, you know, wear the masks, social distancing. It's been really difficult, especially coming back to office, because we are so not used to that. But, you know, we have enforced rules. So that's what it is. And so a couple of things that sort of maybe the government or the country can do for us is, I mean, holidays. Even tomorrow is, fortunately, it's not a mercantile holiday, because we now when we come back to work, we have to work double harder. And if the country has holidays, it's going to be really tough for us, because we can't enforce working, no? And, you know, looking after people. So things like that. So there's a couple of peripheral things to be done. But I of course, really feel the SME plays a role to keep the population, working population, looked after. So that's my take on it, Sayandhan.
Okay, thank you so much. And I hope the SME becomes the engine of growth for where Sri Lankan economy is concerned. Yes. So with that, I will turn on to Buddhima. Buddhima, I congratulate you, because you hold the record in Sri Lanka, maybe in South Asia as well, because you completed your PhD at a very young age. And I hear that you completed your PhD at the age of 24 years. So please tell me what made or what motivated you to complete your PhD so early, and how can education contribute towards building a competency of a person?
Well, Sayandhan, speaking of my life, I started schooling when I was 2.5 years old, and I actually got bullied a lot back then in school because I was the youngest kid in the class. And I was never the best kid in the class. I used to become like the 13th, 14th, 15th in class since until like grade 3. And I still remember in this particular award ceremony, it actually changed my life. I think I should tell this little story, because I hope that it would inspire a lot more students who are watching this, because this one award ceremony in the school really changed my life, where I was seated right at the back. and I was watching all those students who were getting the awards, be it for science, maths, and biology, chemistry, physics. You see, name it, this particular child gets a prize, the class prize, the section prize, so on and so forth. I didn't get a single prize in that award ceremony. Neither did I have at least a proper report card to carry back home. And I was watching, I was thinking, I am this kid who gets bullied big time in class and considered hopeless myself. And I was thinking, what am I doing with my life? And I was thinking, look at those kids who are getting prizes on stage for all of those subjects. And when they walk down the stage, the parents, they cuddle them, and then they get so much of recognition, appreciation. The teachers appreciate them, the school principal appreciates them, the children appreciate them, and they were recognized. So I thought, wow, why can't I change myself? I constantly started asking that question ever since the day I came back home after that prize giving ceremony in schools. And so that prize giving ceremony really changed my life. And after that, the very next grade, when I worked on the term test, I remember working very hard and becoming the first in the class and making my parents very proud, and getting so many prizes that I could carry back home, and seeing those happy tears in my mom's and dad's face in working hard, so that I was also happy to know that I was able to make them proud as a kid, just like all those other kids did back in those other years. I thought, wow, this is happiness, and this is what really matters in life. So then after becoming the first in class that grade, Sayandhan, I realized that I shouldn't look back. I've achieved something and I need to maintain this. So that was one motivation that led me to move forward in my life, especially in the school days. But then when it was, let's say I was only 15 years when I sat for my advanced level examination, once again with a lot of bullying in school and all that, but managed to get over with flying colors and joined university, did a double degree in computer science and software engineering. And that was also because I started researching a lot during my advanced level class as to what my future is going to be. I wanted to become a medical doctor. That was my aspiration. That was something that I always wanted to become ever since I was a kid. If somebody asks me, little me, what do you want to become in life? I always said a doctor, but that was a medical doctor I was thinking of. But unfortunately, I went to an international school. Back then, I didn't have the privilege to get into a national university to study medicine to become a medical doctor. So I thought to myself, when I completed my advanced level examination, even though I did it in bio stream, I thought, Buddhima, are you going to stop here? Is this going to be the end? I questioned myself. And then I thought, okay, let me explore another area. I thought after reading a lot, I realized that computer science is something that's definitely going to take over the future, and information communication technology will definitely be something that would lead all the fields in future. So I thought I'll take up that field. And that's where I got into computer science, and I started working in that field to finally pursue my career to become a PhD, because I couldn't become a medical doctor. So I had a dream to become a PhD at one point in life, and to keep a record to become the youngest. So I think I was able to achieve it. And I'm very happy that I've made my parents, my teachers, my lecturers proud today, being a product of an international school. Yet I was able to achieve that, getting into a government university at the end of the day in my PhD studies, because I finished my PhD at University of Peradeniya, one of the best local universities, the first local university in Sri Lanka, and proud to state that. And that's how I completed my education, and here I am as head computer science at the National Institute of Business Management, speaking to you today. So speaking of competencies, Sayandhan, I think this is the most important aspect when it comes to education, because I truly believe that education is a facilitation of learning. It is the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, habits, which is a compilation of all that really goes into this term called education. And most of us, I think, we have misunderstood this word of education, and we say that we think rather that it is all this knowledge that we gather from books only that amounts to education, that's currently is there, and we believe that we are educated. But what really matters in true leadership is whether how effectively you transform that knowledge using the skills, values, and habits that you combine together to really transform it into wisdom, where you apply wisdom in life to become a great leader. So I think in this process of educating our students, it's not just book knowledge that needs to really get into the lives of students, but also skills, habits, and values and great attitudes which are required for them to really climb up the ladder to become better leaders. So in this process, especially few things that I would like to highlight is mastering communication is a number one skill that our students need to really inculcate in their lives, because we see, especially when these students get on board for interviews, sometimes it's very difficult for us to get the answer for this simple question: introduce yourself to us. You see, so it's very sad to see this happening in most of the companies. Most of the companies really complain that undergraduates or other graduates aren't able to express themselves, and they don't have the proper attitude. So I think these skills need to be developed along with the knowledge that they gather from the books, because otherwise you would definitely become that person who has a lot of things in your head, but you wouldn't be a people's person who has emotional intelligence, who is able to communicate effectively the right message at the right time to the right people, and be able to work with a bunch of people leading a team properly. So these skills, I think you will not be able to gather if you don't really value those skills and make them a part of your life. So this is the message that I would like to give to the students who are watching, that it's not just book knowledge, but you have to really inculcate these skills, the proper skill set, be tech driven, and you have to be skill driven, and at the same time you need to be insight driven for you to lead a life that we expect in this new normal, and also take your life forward to the betterment of the for yourself and the society.
Thanks, Buddhima. I think that's a great story to hear, and I think for all the students who are watching, I'm sure learning is a lifelong experience. The challenge is, if you want to beat Buddhima's record, do your PhD, the pinnacle of education level one can reach before the age of 24, and that's the challenge for you, and it is possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, we planned for a 2-hour discussion, and my clock just passed 100 minutes. So I think it's time to bring the curtain down. So if I just summarize in one line as a take-home message what our 4 eminent panelists mentioned, starting with DIG, Mr. Ajit Rohana, he mentioned positive attitude and the self-awareness in what we do, which will bring us discipline and for a safer nation. And if I take on Dr.Mahen Kotalawala, who is the microbiologist from National Hospital Kandy, he said it's the prevention which will always make it a better cure for safety. And if I take the CEO of Iron One, Lakmini, she said it's a technology, adaptation to technology and change, which will help individual, company, and the nation's economy to grow. And finally, Dr. Buddhima, from the head of computer science from NIBM, who said it's the education, learning, which will bring about the competency in one to achieve success. So ladies and gentlemen, good luck and all the very best. So together with the 4 panelists, let me sign off on behalf of the Rotaract Club of NIBM. Thank you Rotaract Club of NIBM for arranging this session. Stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you.
Thank you.